Welcome to Business Decoded, where we break down how companies really make money. Let's decode today's business model. Spotify pays artists 0.3 cents per stream. A million streams earns $3,000. Artists hate Spotify. But here's what nobody tells you. Spotify can't make a profit either. They pay 70% of revenue to record labels and artists. They keep 30%, but 30% isn't enough. Spotify barely breaks even despite having 600 million users. This is the broken economics of music streaming. Nobody wins except the record labels. Today, we're breaking down why Spotify pays artists pennies but still can't make profit, how record labels capture most of the value, and why the streaming model traps both artists and platforms. Here's what we're covering. The economics of 0.3 cents per stream, why Spotify pays 70% of revenue to labels, and what happens to artists and Spotify. Before we begin, a quick disclaimer. This content is for educational purposes only, not business or legal advice. Company references are from public sources for educational commentary. Trademarks belong to their owners. Consult qualified professionals before making business decisions. Let's start with how Spotify makes money. Spotify has two revenue streams: premium subscriptions and advertising. In 2024, Spotify generated roughly $14 billion in revenue. $11 billion came from premium subscriptions. $3 billion came from ads. Spotify has 600 million total users. 250 million pay for premium. 350 million use free tier. Premium subscribers pay $11 per month. Here's where it gets brutal. Spotify pays 70% of revenue to rights holders. That's record labels, publishers, and artists. 70% of $14 billion is $9.8 billion. Spotify keeps 30%, about $4.2 billion. Out of that, Spotify pays for infrastructure, employees, marketing, technology, everything. In 2024, Spotify's gross margin was about 28%. Operating expenses ate most of that. Spotify reported operating income of roughly $1 billion. That's a 7% operating margin. Compare that to Netflix at 20%, YouTube at 25%, or Apple at 30%. Spotify's margins are terrible. Why does Spotify pay 70%? Because they have no choice. When Spotify launched, they needed music. The big three record labels, Universal, Sony, and Warner, control about 70% of all music. Spotify couldn't launch without their catalogs. The labels knew this. They negotiated deals that gave them 70% of revenue. The labels also got equity in Spotify. When Spotify went public, the labels owned about 15%. They made billions selling their equity. So the labels won twice. 70% of ongoing revenue plus billions from equity appreciation. The 0.3 cents per stream is an average. Spotify doesn't pay per stream directly. They pay based on share of total streams. If your song is 1% of all streams, you get 1% of the revenue pool after Spotify takes their 30%. Artists with huge catalogs make millions. Taylor Swift, Drake, Bad Bunny get millions of streams and make millions. But a small indie artist with 10,000 streams makes $30. That's not enough to live on. The labels take the biggest cut. When Spotify pays out, the money goes to rights holders. For major label artists, the label owns the rights. The label keeps most of the money and pays the artist a royalty, typically 15 to 20%. So if a song earns $3,000 from a million streams, the label keeps $2,400. The artist gets $600. Independent artists who own their rights keep more. If you distribute through a service like DistroKid, you keep about 70% of the streaming payout. So a million streams might net you $2,000 instead of $600. Still not great, but better. This is why artists hate Spotify. They see massive streaming numbers but tiny payouts. Meanwhile, Spotify's valuation is $60 billion. Artists feel exploited. They generate the content. Spotify and the labels capture the value. But Spotify isn't profitable either. They're barely breaking even. The 70% payout makes it impossible to generate high margins. Spotify is stuck between artists who want higher payouts and labels who demand 70%. Spotify has no leverage. The labels engineered this. When streaming started, labels could have killed it. They controlled the music. Instead, they embraced streaming but negotiated deals that gave them most of the revenue. They learned from Napster. File sharing destroyed CD sales. The labels missed that transition. With streaming, they made sure they controlled the economics. The labels benefit from scale. As streaming grows, the label's revenue grows. They don't have to invest in technology or infrastructure. Spotify does. The labels just collect checks. Spotify's strategy to improve margins is diversification. They're investing heavily in podcasts. Podcasts have better economics than music because Spotify can negotiate better deals with podcasters than with record labels. Spotify doesn't pay 70% of podcast revenue to rights holders. Spotify paid over $1 billion to acquire podcast companies and sign exclusive deals with podcasters like Joe Rogan. The Joe Rogan deal was worth over $200 million. Podcasts give Spotify more control over content and better margins. Spotify is also pushing audiobooks. Same logic. Audiobooks have better economics. Spotify can negotiate directly with publishers or authors. They don't have to pay 70% to labels. But music is still 80% of listening hours. Podcasts and audiobooks are growing but not fast enough to offset music's terrible economics. Spotify is trapped. They need music to attract users. But music destroys their margins. Price increases are another lever. Spotify raised the premium subscription from $10 to $11. An extra $1 per month per subscriber is $250 million per year in additional revenue. But price increases cause churn. The ad-supported tier is a double-edged sword. Free users don't pay subscriptions, but Spotify can show them ads. Ad revenue is about $3 billion per year. But ads have lower margins. And free users still cost money. Spotify has to pay labels for free tier streams too. The labels love the free tier because it drives premium conversions. People use free Spotify, get annoyed by ads, and upgrade. The free tier is a marketing funnel. Spotify tolerates the bad economics because it drives growth. Competition is brutal. Apple Music, YouTube Music, Amazon Music, all offer similar catalogs. Switching costs are low. This limits Spotify's pricing power. Apple has an advantage. Apple Music is bundled with Apple's ecosystem. Apple doesn't need to make money on music. They make money selling iPhones. Music is a feature. Spotify is standalone. They have to make money from music alone. YouTube has an advantage too. YouTube Music is bundled with YouTube Premium. Pay $12. Get ad-free YouTube plus YouTube Music. That's better than Spotify's $11 for just music. Amazon Music is bundled with Prime. Prime members get a limited version free. This undercuts Spotify. Amazon can afford to lose money on music because they make money from Prime and e-commerce. Spotify's only advantage is their music first. The interface, playlists, discovery, all optimized for music. This focus gives them a better product. But better product doesn't matter if the economics don't work. The bull case for Spotify is they diversify into podcasts and audiobooks successfully. Music becomes 50% of listening hours instead of 80%. Podcasts and audiobooks have better margins. Overall profitability improves. The bear case is music economics never improve. Labels keep 70% forever. Podcasts and audiobooks don't scale. Competition intensifies. Spotify can't raise prices without losing subscribers. Margins stay below 10%. For artists, the system is broken. Streaming pays pennies. Only superstars make real money. Independent artists are better off because they keep more of the payout. But even indie artists can't live on streaming alone. Most artists make money from touring, merchandise, and brand deals. The solution is owning your music. Don't sign with a major label unless you have to. Distribute independently. Keep your rights. Build a fanbase directly. Sell directly to fans through Bandcamp or Patreon. Streaming is promotion, not revenue. For listeners, Spotify is a great deal. $11 per month for unlimited music is cheap. But this value comes at the expense of artists who get paid almost nothing. Here's what to do. If you're an artist, treat streaming as marketing, not income. Use Spotify to get discovered. Drive fans to your shows and merch. Don't rely on streaming payouts. If you're a listener, understand your $11 mostly goes to labels, not artists. If you want to support artists, buy their merch or go to shows. Now, next time on Business Decoded, we're examining YouTube's creator economy. They paid creators $30 billion over 3 years. Why does YouTube share 55% of ad revenue when Spotify pays artists almost nothing? Spotify pays artists 0.3 cents per stream. Artists hate it, but Spotify can't make a profit either. They pay 70% of revenue to labels. 30% isn't enough. The streaming model is broken. Labels win. Spotify barely survives. Artists get scraps. Nobody wins except the labels. And that's how they built it. If this helped you understand business better, subscribe for weekly deep dives into the world's most successful companies. Thanks for watching.